A question we get asked a lot is, are they Huskies? And of course they are, because Huskies is a term that has existed for a very long time. The origin of the word Husky it's a word that was used by the Indians who live in what you could consider the United States to describe the dogs that belong to the Inuit and Indians who live in Canada and Alaska. So when the white explorers came to the Americas and they were talking about those people who lived north in Canada and Alaska, and specifically the dogs that belonged to these people, they described them as Huskies. In the English dictionary, the description of Husky is furry northern dog that pulls a sled. It doesn't say anything about the eyes, the color. It says the amount of fur it has, what it does, and where it lives. That's it. The dogs we have here are what they call Alaskan Huskies. And this is a specific type of dog. It's not a purebred dog, but it's not a mixed breed dog either. So the origin of these dogs is the Alaskan villages. And if you go back in history, you will see that for thousands of years, these sled dogs have been working with the indigenous tribes in Alaska to pull their sleds, to go hunting, to move camp, to transport things up and down the rivers and over the wilderness. Now these dogs back in the day, they were big, heavy, monster dogs. If you want to imagine them, what they kind of look like, just think of a Malamute, an Alaskan Malamute, and that is roughly what a Husky would have looked like. A big, strong, tough, furry dog. The reason is back in the day there, they had very little food. It was a very harsh environment to live, and to survive in those conditions, being big, tough, and hairy is very beneficial. However, as time progressed, new dogs moved in, times changed. During the gold rush, there was a huge demand for sled dogs in Alaska. And dogs were literally stolen from the rest of the world, from Canada, from the United States, and shipped up north and put to work. There was criminal gangs smuggling dogs to the north. The story, Call of the Wild by Jack London, is based on this premises. Buck, the dog, is captured, kidnapped from California, from his nice, loving, civilized family, and moved up north to Alaska, where he assimilates. It is literally sink or swim. Either, as Finn says, si pere o peta. You learn how to survive or you die. And Buck is one of those dogs that survives. However, of course, what happens is that this new influx of genetics, of new genes, of new dogs, of course, these new arrivals, they interbreed with the local dogs that are already there. That being said, the life was still very tough. It was a harsh, tough life, so only the toughest dogs survived. So this gene pool took all these new genes, chewed them up, spat out what it didn't like, kept the furry, strong, tough ones at it. They were still Huskies, but maybe now these days there was a little bit of floppy ears in there, or maybe some different colors showed up. But the essence of the dogs was still the same. They were big, furry dogs used by the settlers, by the mushers, by the Indians, the Inuit in Alaska to get the job done. Slowly, things like snowmobiles and aeroplanes and trains and roads became more common, and the use of sled dogs as a beast of burden, as a way of transporting dogs, started to die out. So what happened is as working with the dogs died out, racing with them became relatively more important. Now, it doesn't really matter where you go in the world. If you go to the ancient Aztecs, they played this proto-version of basketball with severed heads. We have the ancient Greeks with the Olympics. You have the Inuit with their Inuit Olympic Games. Competition, racing, competitive aspect. It is part of what makes us human. It is humanity, what that is. And in Alaska, and in many places in the north, it was also a way of racing sled dogs. So what happened is that working with the dogs became relatively less important. Racing with the dogs became more important. But that meant that being big, heavy, and furry, like I am, is not really a competitive advantage. I ran a half marathon once, and it was a painful, humiliating experience. And all these, little athletic people came prancing past me and beat me. Very nice. Same goes for the dogs. All of a sudden, big, hairy, furry, tough is not going to win you the race. Being athletic, smaller, medium-sized, not too much hair, wins the race. in a funny twist of fate, the first dogs to prove this concept were the actual imported Siberian dogs, what is now the Siberian Husky. But they were the first step in the evolution of the Alaskan Husky to become a smaller, sleeker, lighter, more athletic dog. So with that new genetic selective pressure of competitive speed, the Alaskan Husky started to evolve. These big, furry, heavy dogs slowly over time turned into the sleek, running dogs you see now. And over time, they specialized. We have these days Alaskan Huskies, which are long-distance racing dogs. We have Alaskan Huskies, which are bred for mid-distance racing. We have what they call village dogs, which is sort of like an original, tougher, bigger version of the Alaskan Husky. There is sprint racing versions of these, and there is just people who tour with them. So over time, what has also happened is that each type of Alaskan is bred by people who have a preference. Some people like dogs with long legs and deep chests, and some people like to have their Huskies with lots of fur, or some people have a specific type. These Alaskan Huskies all resemble what their owners think is important. So if you visit our kennel and you see a couple of dogs and you go, those are Alaskan Huskies, if you visit another kennel, the dogs there could look completely different, because that is their version of the Alaskan Husky. By virtue of their job, their ancestry, the selection criteria, that is what makes them an Alaskan Husky.